Welcome back to Fundamentals of Action Research at Belhaven University as part of our Doctor of Education program. And in this session, we're going to be discussing the alignment between the Action Research Project and relevant literature. There should be alignment. I'm going to go ahead and tip you off. It's got to be there. You want to make the connection in writing and in your planning of your Action Research Project between the focus of your research and current, which would be recent, relevant academic literature. So the objectives for this session are to construct an annotated bibliography relevant to that assigned action research project that you've been given. Most of you are going to be very well-versed or have a lot of experience with an annotated bibliography. That's going to be very important. You're just going to carry that skill forward throughout this review of literature and making that sure the alignment is in place. And you're going to develop an outline that demonstrates those points of connection. And again, it's important that you're looking at current, recent, relevant academic literature. And that's probably going to be the last year to 18 months. You want to be looking at dissertation research. You want to be looking at scholarly articles. You want to be looking at the latest, greatest research relevant to the topic or the problem you've been assigned. So just a bit more biblical foundation. Matthew 22:32 through 40. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law?" And Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." And I want you to think about that, the highlighted portion in particular. And the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. That's very familiar to us from those of us who adhere to a Christian worldview. Very familiar passage in Scripture. But what you're doing in designing and implementing this action research project can be a demonstrable way to be living this notion of loving your neighbor as yourself. Think about that as you are exploring, as you are conducting this action research project, as you are constructing, a plan of action to address the assigned problem. It should benefit your neighbor, who in the context of your study will be the stakeholders that you identify in your partner school district. Perhaps they're students, maybe it's parent groups, maybe it's families, maybe it's teachers, maybe it's the district as a whole. So just keep in mind, they are the neighbor, and you're going to demonstrate love for them and the quality of the research and the action plan you develop to hopefully address the problem or the issue they're experiencing in that partner district. But why do we do a literature review? What's the purpose? Well, obviously, it's to find out what other people have said about your topic. So right now, because you're not done with the program and we haven't awarded that degree, you are not the expert. So your opinion, sadly, is not relevant. It can guide your research, but it cannot be part of the literature review because you are not part of the established or the extant literature. So the reason you do the review is to find out what's being said and to see what research has been conducted relevant to your topic. You want to check your ideas and your opinions and your thoughts and findings against other people's to develop arguments. So you want to see if what you're finding or what you believe is in alignment with, does it affirm, does it confirm, or does it depart from what's established in the literature. So it's a great way to check to see how your ideas connect to what's already out there. And it's also the most amazing platform to establish yourself, to present yourself as a scholar. You're going to be using academic writing. You're going to be using a specified APA format. But this is your way to communicate to the field and to make your presence known in the literature, is to present yourself as a scholar. So quality writing and workmanship is important. So there are several specific purposes for the lit review that McNiff discussed in the text, and I just want to go over those briefly. The first is to give an overview of the big issues. Part of your perspectives for your action research project will be to discuss what the literature indicates are the big issues relevant to your topic or your problem. Not what you feel about it, but what you've read in recent relevant academic literature. You also want to select some of these for your studies. So you're going to use some of those to inform your goals or benchmarks for your study. Another purpose is to summarize other people's work. Your background information and your review of the literature, which are going to be required components of your prospectus, should absolutely be citing other people's work, other scholars' work found in the literature, and you only can find it by reading. You do a literature review to evaluate other people's work. You may find that what's out there right now relevant to your topic is lacking, and that's part of the justification for why you're doing your study. That's not the goal necessarily, but you may find that there's a need for more research in that area. To provide a context for your own work. This is how you are going to develop your background. You're going to start by telling the reader and your stakeholders in your partner school district in your prospectus and in your eventual report at the end, this is what's in the literature now relevant to this. So they need to know to identify gaps and to develop an understanding of theory and method. So this is where you're going to identify, as we discussed in previous session, that theoretical framework or conceptual model that's going to provide the lens from which you're looking at your study, at your action plan. And it's also a fantastic resource for identifying and understanding a methodological approach. What are the best ways to collect data relevant that will help answer your research questions? So that's going to complete this session. You want to be sure to do the assigned reading and writing assignments, participate in the discussion questions in Canvas. And I look forward to seeing you in the next session.